Now, one thing which I need to actually emphasize at the start is the version of Renderman Studio which we are using. So currently I am working with Renderman for Maya 5.0, which comes with Renderman Studio 4.0. The critical thing on top of this is Renderman Pro Server technology, which does all the rendering, is at version 17.0 in the version which I'm using. Okay? Now, the reason for my saying this is that if you're on a legacy version of Renderman, not everything I'm doing will actually work for you. And if you're on the newer version, Renderman Pro Server 18, which has been released now, there are extra features which I cannot cover because they're not implemented in this version yet. So this will work for Renderman Studio 4.0, and I will give updates as and when they're available. Okay. Light blockers. Let's just have a think what light blockers are to start with. You may have heard about them, you may have read about them on the forums, but what do they actually do for us in terms of workflows inside Renderman? Now, some of you no doubt are actually familiar with real-world lighting. You will have been on film sets and you will have seen all kinds of gadgets which lighting cameramen and cinematographers use in their daily task of actually trying to get just the perfect light on the surfaces which they're trying to illuminate. Okay, so there's storytelling purposes and there's general purposes in terms of getting lighting levels correct, but they have a whole toolkit of bits and pieces of hardware which they bring around with them and they actually use to change the way in which light is bounced around a physical film set. Now, light blockers achieve quite a few of the same results within our virtual film set in Maya and Renderman Studio. The most obvious thing which a light blocker will simulate is a flag, which is used to block light. The second purpose which we can use it for, not necessarily advised within the documentation, but I have used it in the past, is use it as a gel, which will actually color the light in a particular area. We can use it as a cucurolus, or as they're sometimes known as a gobo. So these are gobos. And gobos can be highly colored and, for instance, give the effect of light coming through stained glass, or they can be very simple and just give the effect of light coming through branches and leaves outside a window. So there are gobos, cookies, flags, gels and scrims, all of which are simulated to some effect. Here's an example again of a gobo. Some effect we can actually use them within the virtual world of Maya and Renderman Studio. So let's start off. Simple scene. I have made a plane, which I'm sure you're all capable of doing. Because I'll be using Renderman physically plausible lights, I want to put a Renderman material on this. So I'm going to be dealing with Renderman Studio matte and leave it at white for the moment. Okay. The next thing which I need to do is put in a light. Now there are two types of light which will work with light blockers. The first is environment light and the second is area light. I will begin in this tutorial looking at the area light, and let's just drop one into the scene. So we've dropped one in the scene. I'll open up the window here to show that we actually have one, and I'm going to scale this. So I'm going to scale this, oops, not that, cancel, just the area light. That's my bad. So scaling the area light, because remembering with physically plausible lights, the larger the light, the more light it's actually emitting. And let's rotate it, and let's move it. Okay, so larger light emits more light, and I'm going to increase the intensity here to about 5. I'm going to go to my render settings. I want to have ray tracing turned on and quality currently at about 5. Should be okay. Let's just do a quick render and see what it looks like. It's maybe a little bit overlit here, so let me change that down to 4. Go back to my image tool and leave it always on top. So that's ticked. Try re-render. Could even drop it down to 3. Let's try that. Okay. That's a reasonably level lighting. What I want to do now is actually put in, very, very simply, a light blocker. There are two basic working methods to which we can actually apply a light blocker to this scene. The first is one which may appear to be obvious, and it's within our toolbar up here. After we have environment light, let's just see if the tooltips come up here. They do sometimes, but not all the time. Let's just click here, sometimes refreshing it. It'll come up, area light, create light blocker. There we go. So I'll create a light blocker, and we'll see a light blocker is now in our scene. I'm just going to call this Mark's light blocker, because that's my name. Just so we know, all the iterations here are going to be Mark's light blocker. And I'll scale it up so it actually has a little bit more impact. And I've misspelled blocker, I've put 2 R's in it. Okay, let's just move this up. So there's a light blocker, there's a light, out of the box. Let's see what happens. Re-render. There's no effect. Is this surprising? It could be initially, but there's a reason for this. The reason is the light here does not actually know that there are light blockers within the scene. So when it's rendering, it has no idea that this light blocker exists. What we need to do is within the light parameters, so here's the area light, we need to go to the area light attributes, and in the bound co-shader section down here, okay, so it's down below distant photon target, bound co-shader, we right click and we can see down here I've got Mark's light blocker shape, and that's now attached, it's in there. Okay, so with this light here we can see that there's an input now available. Okay, and I'll do a re-render. We can see that light is being blocked. It's actually working. Okay, so that's the first way which we can do it. Now there is another way which we can do it. Let me just move this off to the side. Still keep it in our scene, so it's there somewhere. Now the second way which we can do it is within the area light itself. Once I drop in one bound co-shader, another one will pop up, but even before I've done that, if I had just right clicked here, I can go create light blocker. So I've got a second light blocker here. Now let me just scale this, scale it up, and here we go. Let's just do a quick render. So you can now see I've got 2 light blockers which are both working with the same light. Okay, so what else can we do with light blockers? Let's look at what's going on here. The first thing which we can look at is using a filter color. Now, filter color is quite interesting when it's in blocker mode. Now, let's be aware there's 2 kinds of modes here. There's blocker and window. In blocker mode, we can do something interesting with it. If I was to make this red, and I was to make this blue, and I was to re-render, what I'm getting there is basically the effect of some gels. So the light is coming through these and being influenced. Now this is still working as a blocker, so it's darkening the background based on these. Okay, it's not lightening the background, it's darkening it. Kind of interesting effect, but may not be for everyone. Okay, there is a third way which we can actually create light blockers. Let me just do it here. So if I go to Renderman and I go to nodes, down here is light blocker. I can now move this, scale it, do all these other things, scale and move. Let's move it over here, and again it's not actually loaded in, so let's call this, just call it 2. Let's just make sure in the area light, the unlight which we have in our scene here at the moment, we're going to add blocker shape 2. So you can see it's actually in there now. Re-render, and we now have 3 light blockers producing different results. Okay, I'm going to leave things here just for the moment, and we'll come back and have a look at some more effects which we can create using our light blockers. Thanks very much, and hope to catch you again soon.